Here's a look at when MasterChef challenges turned disastrous, with this particular moment crossing the line into total chaos. Chef Ramsay called him out.
Just step back.
And yeah, you can probably guess why.
I'm struggling to identify what the hell you're doing. I really am.
I mean, come on. Did he forget that hygiene is always a top priority? Chef Ramsay was definitely disappointed in him.
All the way down and all over the place. Look at the cupboards.
I don't.
And you best believe he wasn't done yet.
You'd been fired 6 months ago.
Yes, chef.
Seriously, if someone can't grasp such a basic concept, maybe they're in the wrong profession, you know? Poor Tali was extremely embarrassed, beyond words. The intense shame was written all over his face, and you could see it without even asking.
That is a disaster.
Judging by his expression, he was genuinely ashamed. Unfortunately, if his station looked bad, his dish was even worse.
And
it's served on a bed of raw flour, right?
I guess it just wasn't his day. The pizza was coated in raw flour, and his reaction was straight out of kitchen nightmares.
I mean, here's the thing. You work in a mess, you produce a mess.
And he wasn't wrong. If the circumstances had been different, he might have managed to create something better, something at least edible. Regardless, Chef Ramsay was genuinely worried about Tali's direction. It's clear that Ramsay truly cares about his contestants. Sure, Tali could be annoying, but he couldn't beat the next contestant, who was brimming with overconfidence. Well, I think Jenny from Season 2 messed up just as bad, if not worse. Things got so wild that the judges were pretty much at a loss for words. So, it was the elimination round in Episode 7, and the challenge? Pretty damn easy as far as MasterChef challenges go.
Elimination test is... desserts.
See? I told you, it was simple and straight. And if you thought that was easy, just wait till you hear the star of the theme.
Coffee.
That's right, coffee. With a challenge that's supposed to be a walk in the park like this one, you'd think the contestants would come through with something seriously good. But no, you couldn't be more wrong. So, what exactly did she whip up that was so horrible, you ask?
Is it supposed to look like that? What is that?
A tart infused with coffee? Huh. Okay, like, I get the concept. She was probably trying to channel some tiramisu vibes into it. But still, it sounds pretty odd if you ask me. And the dish's looks were pretty odd too. But hey, you know what they say, don't judge a book by its cover. But maybe you should in this case, because when the tart was cut open, you won't believe what happened.
Not cooked all the way through. I put it in too late.
So it's raw.
Not a great start now, was it? Before the judges even tasted the dish, Jo had already identified a flaw. And guess what? She didn't really do a great job at making a good excuse to save herself either.
It's totally raw, but the top's edible.
Well, the opposite of being cooked is raw, right? So
Yeah, I think that's what raw means. I mean, why bother trying to cover up such an obvious mistake? Doesn't make sense, does it? Honestly, I'm with Jo here.
all right, so it's raw.
After seeing the disaster of a dish, you can pretty much imagine what it must taste like, and if you can't, well, let me help you.
ugh.
That summed it up, but let's face it, the ultimate verdict rests with Chef Ramsay. He's the true judge there, especially in this season, right after Graham. Chef Ramsay's response to the dish settled one thing. It had absolutely no redeeming qualities.
I mean, excuse me.
It was so bad, he didn't even swallow it. I'm pretty sure he regretted ever even putting it in his mouth. And what did he have to say about it? Nothing good, apparently.
It's an embarrassment for you and it's an embarrassment for this competition. 90 minutes, Jenny.
This is what made her situation even worse. How could you produce something so terrible when you had 90 minutes? You mean to say you had 90 minutes to complete the easiest challenge imaginable and still couldn't deliver? Naturally, Chef Ramsay's disappointment was understandable. But wait, he wasn't done with the dish. He wasn't going to let a disaster like this go without at least one cutting remark. And let me tell you, he really let Jenny have it. The insult he came up with? It's something you have to hear to believe.
And smash the plate on the way up here, because that is hideous.
One thing's certain, this moment will likely haunt her for years to come. Whether it's a bad attitude or poorly executed dishes, the contestants on MasterChef certainly know how to humiliate themselves. And this next contestant was no different.
This is a joke. I don't know what to say.
Next up, let me introduce you to Brian O'Brien, twice named, but maybe naming his dish thrice wasn't the best idea. Anyway, Ramsay and Tony couldn't help but exchange glances when the so-called Filet O'Brien was put in front of them.
Describe the dish, please.
This is the Filet O'Brien.
But in spite of that, Brian looked pretty proud of his eponymous filet. But let me tell you, that pride was definitely misplaced. Because instead of being impressed, Tony couldn't resist taking a jab at Brian over it.
Catapulted yourself with the great cooks of the world.
The sarcasm was real. Ramsay, meanwhile, found the whole situation absolutely hilarious.
Filet O'Brien.
My name is Brian O'Brien.
You've named it after yourself.
But could the dish match up to his own name? Considering Brian was relatively unknown, living up to his name probably wasn't going to work in his favor. Anyway, when a situation reminiscent of Hell's Kitchen finds its way into MasterChef, it's only a matter of time before things get heated. And that's precisely what unfolded in this episode of Season 8, with a task to feed a massive number of guests. Similarities to other intense situations were certainly evident. Before long, Ramsay noticed a bowl filled exclusively with center slices, perplexed by what had happened to the rest. And Jason sent him over the edge.
We just wanted to have a nicer presentation, so we chose the uniform cuts that are in the middle.
Ramsay couldn't believe it. The dude had butchered the most expensive meat in the country, beyond recognition for that? Yeah, Ramsay got real pissed real quick.
But you can't just trash that. It's not a chuck steak.
So the contestants hurried to correct the mistake before time ran out. Lesson learned, never mishandle expensive ingredients. Take this, and remember what happened with those scallops by Taven in Hell's Kitchen as a cautionary tale. Now, let's shift to a more coherent topic. Here it is. Let's discuss Audrey's audition. She confidently presented her secret weapon... cakes? Yes, cakes, but not just any cakes. She wanted to make the judges... eat themselves. I mean, I'm not even sure if this is real at this point.
Wow. That is dope.
But fortunately for Audrey, all she needed was an opening to get the judges' attention. And she definitely accomplished that.
Look at Joe, he looks like a granddad.
And that wasn't the only thing she managed to accomplish.
Is Joe smiling or not?
I actually found one picture on the internet of you smiling.
However, while the judges found it amusing, they were also quite puzzled, as those caricatures turned out to be more frightening than appetizing. It didn't help that they completely fell apart when inserted into the cakes.
And you need a bigger base for Graham.
Come eat some cake!
Despite the unsettling caricatures, ruined cakes, and a lot of confusion, Audrey's creation turned out to be surprisingly impressive.
They're caricatures. They're not supposed to be exact.
Yeah, I was sure she was done for when her cake fell apart. But she ended up winning an apron. And right after that, the narrator said the funniest thing I've ever heard him say. For the first time.
And for the very first time, bites his own head off.
0 notes. But if you thought Audrey's attempt to impress the judges was ridiculous, wait till you hear about this next one. It'll make those unsettling caricatures seem totally ordinary. So, back at the auditions, as I mentioned, where all the craziest things tend to occur, a husband and wife duo found themselves in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Now, this guy was also eager to catch the judges' attention, and you wouldn't believe the extremes he was willing to go to achieve it.
This is my special treat. I have been looking forward to serving this for you guys for a while.
At the end of this chaos, would it surprise you to learn that the guy earned an apron and eventually won the entire season? Well, it should, because that didn't happen. Not even close. Instead, the judges sent the two packing. But hey, at least one of them found the whole thing amusing.
Gordon Ramsay ate sushi off of me.
Well, if there's ever been a conversation starter. Honestly, this audition made me question just how much some people were willing to do for their 15 minutes of fame. And I'm genuinely surprised they even entertained the two. You should understand that in MasterChef, there's no tolerance for ignorance.
Your plate with your cloth. Yes, chef. Now, will you please stop?
Like, none at all.
We're out of chicken.
What?
We're out of chicken.
And why do I say this? Let me take you to this specific episode from Season 4, where MasterChef took an unforeseen twist.
You had the best dishes in the last elimination, so you two are the team captains.
Chef Ramsay invited two special guests to dine that evening. Aaron, described as a flavor scientist, and his food-loving fiancée, Anya, who were preparing to marry the following day. But wait, Chef Ramsay had more surprises in store. What he revealed next was even more astonishing.
And surprise, you will be cooking the food at the reception.
Yes, we have another MasterChef catered wedding reception on our hands, and we all know what that entails. The stakes were higher than ever. The contestants couldn't believe their luck.
This is an important gig. Why the are they trusting us?
With less than 24 hours until the reception, the home cooks scrambled to prepare for the monumental task ahead. But then, the bride, Anya, decided to raise the stakes even further.
No peanuts, no beets, no radishes.
Anya presented a lengthy list of ingredients that were strictly forbidden for use in any of the dishes. And the list seemed endless. She just kept going and going and going.
No dill, no cilantro, no olives.
I mean, Anya managed to eliminate some of the most commonly used ingredients in under a minute. Even Chef Ramsay was taken aback by the sudden imposition of such a comprehensive list.
We making lettuce wraps and water for his wedding.
With time running out and the pressure building, the contestants faced one of their toughest challenges yet, as they hurried to create a memorable and delicious menu for Aaron and Anya's wedding reception. As part of the challenge, the home cooks were given the task of preparing 2 spectacular entrees, one meat-based and one vegetarian. Well, that certainly brought smiles to everyone's faces, right? However, upon arriving at the venue, the contestants encountered yet another surprise. Guys, we've had our fill of surprises by now. Anyway, they would be serving over 100 guests, including 15 vegetarians. Joe was clear about the expectations from the home cooks.
Make sure that there is something delicious to eat for every single guest.
Anyway, Natasha and James assumed roles as team captains for the first time. James, who had won the crab challenge, had the first choice and selected Lynn, a consistently strong contender.
But it's also exponentially puts the weight on my shoulders every time I'm picked first.
Lynn's skill in the kitchen, paired with his amiable personality, made him a valuable asset to James's team, which also featured Jesse, Johnny, Bree, and Luca. Meanwhile, Natasha partnered with Eddie as her co-captain and finalized her team with Jordan, Bethy, Savannah, and Chrissy. However, in a twist typical of the season, the producers introduced a psychological twist, giving each team captain the opportunity to exempt one member from the challenge. And guess who Natasha decided to exclude from participating?
Chrissy, you're not going to be playing with us.
My feet, thank you.
Chrissy was thrilled to be chosen. She earned the benefit of advancing to the top 11. Naturally, she welcomed the free pass. Meanwhile, James surprisingly selected Bree, the only vegetarian among them. And unlike Chrissy, Bree was pissed.
Would you get rid of someone who's such a strong vegetarian?
And yeah, when you're dealing with vegetarians, having one on hand as a consultant might not be a bad idea. Setting that aside, the blue team, initially packed with talented chefs, surged ahead while the red team struggled to keep up. However, the situation quickly reversed as the blue team began to falter.
Not send this!
Oh my god.
Look! Dirty plates!
Chef Ramsay grew increasingly frustrated as the delay persisted, with 2 tables eagerly anticipating the blue team's entrees. The pressure was mounting, and Chef Ramsay was displeased with the slow progress. Eventually, the blue team picked up their pace and their lamb dish was on its way to the dining room. However, Lynn, feeling the imminent risk of losing the first team challenge, began to falter under the pressure. Just when Lynn thought things couldn't deteriorate further, Chef Ramsay stepped in, stopping him in his tracks with a stern admonishment.
You're sweating, look at me, on the food, okay, young man?
In a bold move, Chef Ramsay made the decision to have the team do this instead.
No way, you can't sweat in the food.
Hygiene is non-negotiable in the kitchen, and Ramsay wasn't about to compromise on that. But with time running out, the blue team had to regroup and tackle the challenge head-on with no room for error or messes. When things seemed like they couldn't get any crazier, Joe came in as a bearer of bad news for Ramsay.
Table 2, no blue plates. Table 3, no blue plates.
The blue team's diners had absolutely no food on their tables. Guests even threatened to bail, but Chef Ramsay had enough and wasn't holding back anymore.
You're wiping the forehead again, and you're wiping the plates.
As the blue team tried pivoting and scrambled to keep up with orders, something gross happened.
I just watched you wipe your plate with your cloth.
Yes, chef.
Now, will you please stop?
I mean, what was he thinking? At that point, Chef Ramsay had reached his limit.
The lamb is cold. The lamb is cold. Get it back.
Sadly, by the time they tried to recover, it was already too late. The red team had already locked up the win. I feel like there's a lesson here, but I'm not really sure what. Ah well, sucks to suck, blue team. Anyway, now I want to spotlight episode 10 of season 9, when 2 pairs of super friendly contestants were tasked with teaming up for a new challenge.
You will be working in pairs.
However, instead of becoming the dream team, they ended up becoming each other's worst enemies. The first challenge was an ingredients test, where the judges provided the teams with 5 ingredients: a whole chicken, carrots, onion, bacon, and cornmeal. The teams had to determine what to make with these ingredients, and the judges offered them a couple of examples. After the teams were formed, there was an uneven number of contestants, leaving Ralph without a partner. However, this turned out to be beneficial for him, as he was rewarded by the judges with a partnership with Joe Bastianic himself. This major advantage not only kept Ralph safe from elimination, but also set the stage for an interesting twist in the competition. Joe may not be a chef, but he was going to be damned if Ralph dragged his reputation into the dirt. That aside, onto the main event. Taylor and Ashley were a problematic pairing right from the start because both were too nice to take the lead.
I'm happy to work with Taylor.
I mean, we can also do one of the onions, but if we...
Despite brainstorming and deciding on their dish with the given ingredients, Ramsay started worry.
I think personally they're too friendly. They might not want to say that tough thing to one another.
You see, being friends could potentially hinder their ability to call each other out on mistakes. Chef Ramsay feared they might struggle to hold each other accountable in a competition setting. But in the end, it's all part of the challenge, and only time would tell how long their friendship could withstand the pressure of it. And given they made it to today's list, it wasn't long.
It looks terrible.
That's my bad. I'm sorry.
When Chef Ramsay went over to check on Ashley and Taylor, he wasn't pleased with their dish.
Where you brulee the onion and then you peel.
That's normally in a chipini or...
He straight up called it ridiculous and asked Ashley what the hell she was thinking.
Is sure, or was it for flavor?
I've never done it before, Chef. I wanted to taste it first.
And Ashley's response? Apparently she was just trying out new stuff. Seriously, girl? This is a competition, not an experiment. Chef Ramsay had to knock some sense into her and remind her of the stakes of the competition. But just then, something caught Chef Ramsay's eye, something that left him in utter shock. Both Ashley and Taylor were like deer in headlights, completely frozen. Finally, Ashley admitted it was her fault, but that wasn't going to change the fact that pissed.
You're two girls I believed in. I've seen better performances than Junior MasterChef with 8-year-olds.
He let them know how ridiculous what they were doing was, and that was the moment when tension started to rise between them.
Why did you slice it that way?
It was a pivotal moment in their partnership, and the pressure of the competition was clearly taking its toll on it. You could see that Chef Ramsay was just so disappointed in both of them. Anyway, the time soon came to judge the dishes.
Definitely not on the same page, and it is completely coming through on this plate.
Ashley and Taylor had cooked pan-seared chicken breast with sauteed carrots, bacon, and cornbread, and it looked dismal. There was barely anything on the plate, so the judges didn't even taste it because they had to know what went wrong.
She wanted a carrot puree at the bottom of the plate.
That was, we both said a carrot puree, and I said, can you nail that? And you said, yeah.
The partnership had never looked anything but strong. At least, leading up to this competition. But as it turns out, it was weak beyond belief. Then they started to blame each other for what went wrong, and there weren't any real carrots on the plate because they argued over the carrot puree.
Watching both of you work is like chewing gum with a mouthful of nuts.
It was a messy situation, and their inability to work together ultimately cost them so much. But did their dish taste good? Well...
Seriously? The cornbread is dry, it's crumbly.
Unfortunately, the blame game didn't stop there.
I started to cut it, and then Ashley was like, don't cut it that way.
Ashley had failed to execute them properly. She also wouldn't take the blame for them because she said it had been Taylor's idea to do them in the first place and that she was doing something else entirely. In the end, neither of them chose to take responsibility. The real truth of the matter was that they both argued over what to do with the carrots and about how to cut the chicken. But sadly, they never settled on anything. The two of them were dysfunctional at best and never had it in them to win the challenge as a team. Moreover, they were both super embarrassed for letting down their mentor, Gordon Ramsay, who had handpicked them expecting to see great teamwork. And after the disappointing performance, Chef Ramsay didn't take it well either.
But right now, with these two guys standing, I look the biggest idiot in this kitchen.
Well, I guess it just wasn't their day. Max stepped up, armed with desserts that seemed to be designed to embarrass the living daylights out of himself. Chef Ramsay took the first bite, and guess how he reacted?
Damn.
Yup, he went silent. Oh man, it was one of those moments where you could almost feel the tension through the screen. Instead of just giving his verdict right away, Chef Ramsay threw a curveball at Max and asked him to taste it. And what did Max do?
It's like I've just gone to the doctors for a skin graft on my butt and stuck it in caramel. That is a horrible, weird texture.
He stood there, beaming with confidence. He was smiling as if he had just served up a dessert fit for a king. But hold on, Chef Ramsay wasn't letting him off the hook that easy. He laid down the brutal truth about how embarrassing his dessert was at this level of the competition. You'd think Max would be shrinking into a puddle of shame, right? Nope, he was grinning from ear to ear for some reason. Next, it was time for Graham to take a bite, and how do you think he reacted? Yeah, his face spoke a lot more than his words. He just could not come to terms with what he had just eaten. And then, he went on to deliver a final blow. He called out the dish for its horrible texture and basically warned him that he should be seriously worried.
You know, the fact that it's an elimination test, it's serious.
I mean, the situation was so embarrassing that awkward doesn't even begin to cover it. Anyway, time to cut to the chase. Chef Ramsay didn't hold back, stating that Jenny's dish was a serious contender for being the worst dish of the night, but guess what? Two others were even worse, so luckily she was in the clear. this time. Now, when it came to Alvin, Chef Ramsay delivered the gut punch. His dish took the crown for being the worst of the night, and it was time for him to say goodbye. Ouch. But hey, at least Alvin got a parting note about being courageous, but needing to nail the basics before moving forward. And on the bright side, look at who survived to cook another day.
You? Back on your station.
Prepare to witness the next epic fail in the kitchen as things spiral out of hand. A dish that could be served in a fancy restaurant, but he didn't look worried about it. But he didn't seem to be too concerned about it.
A bit foreign, just going from that kind of thing to the fine dining.
Yeah, well, looks like he was in for a real adventure. But what was he cooking up exactly? Listen to it yourselves.
What are you cooking today then?
Cooking a chicken jolie.
Yep, Nick had decided to present what he called chicken jolie. It's chicken breast cooked with white wine and served with fettuccine, Parmesan cheese, avocado, and almonds. Sounds fancy, huh? Guess what? He confessed that the chicken he used was straight from the supermarket. So much for wilderness cooking, right? Anyway, Nick finally finished preparing his dish. When he went to present it, here's how the judges reacted upon seeing him.
What's with the woolly hat, mate? It's like 30 degrees outside.
Yeah, I don't think his response impressed them. Anyway, once the introductions were done, the judges were so curious about his cooking that they walked over to his cooking station to get a closer look.
So do you fish? Do you shoot?
But just when the food critics started grilling him about where he got his ingredients from, you won't believe what he said.
Eating the odd bit of roadkill?
Sorry?
Oh no! Nick just claimed something incredibly absurd. I mean, I've never heard anything as stupid as that before. Nick casually dropped the bomb he sometimes picks up kangaroo meat from the roadside. Yeah, you heard that right. Like, come on! It's like he was suggesting we have roadkill for dinner. The judges' faces said it all. They weren't exactly that thrilled about tasting his dish.
I'm eternally suspicious now.
But wait, things took an unexpected turn. The judges decided to settle it with a game of rock, paper, scissors. They wanted to see who would have the honor of tasting Nick's creation first.
Actually, paper, rock, scissors.
Classic, right? I mean, how many times have you seen this happen on MasterChef? I'm sure Gary dreaded going in first, but well, somebody had to do the honors. And this is how it turned out to be.
Oh no!
Nick forgot to mention a surprise ingredient in his dish, his unruly hair. Despite being tucked under the hat, it eventually made its way into the dish. When Gary confronted him about the hair, the dude just laughed it off. Unfortunately, it seems this chicken dish didn't quite live up to its jolly moniker for the judges, leaving them less than impressed. But in this next episode, the kitchen was alive with excitement as Reese embarked on his latest daring culinary adventure.
A pasta dish that I've been cooking for.
Get ready, because what he's about to create might completely change your opinion about pasta. Reese began his cooking journey with the usual ingredients: diced bacon, shallots, salt, pepper, and garlic. So far, it sounds normal, right? But then, he took an unexpected turn by adding cream, cheese, and, well, take it a look yourselves.
Secret ingredient, sweet chili sauce.
Sweet chili sauce. Yes, you heard that right, sweet chili sauce in pasta. But will this be a flavor masterpiece or a disaster for the taste buds? We'll just have to wait and see.
How are you, mate?
Now, if you're wondering whether Reese pulled off these culinary antics after a series of sleepless nights, you might just be onto something.
I've got myself a pasta dish.
So what's in there?
Some bacon, diced bacon.
This dish literally screamed midnight munchies. And what was Reese's excuse?
I'm gonna add some cheese as well and some sweet chili sauce.
Right.
Man, he was just really hungry, I guess. Fair enough, mate, but hunger doesn't always translate into culinary brilliance.
Sounds like a midnight, man, I'm really hungry.
While all of this was unfolding, you could already see the disappointment etched on the judges' faces.
Hey, it is tasty, look at that.
So, this dish has a name.
So, what did Reese name this Frankenstein's monster of a dish? Fettuccine Alfredo? Nope. Reese decided to call it something else.
This is like a fettuccine Alfredo, one of the great Italian.
I tend to call it feta creamchi.
Feta creamchi, a hodgepodge of words that perfectly encapsulated the chaos in the kitchen. But hey, who needs tradition when you can have confusion served on a plate, right? Now brace yourselves, as Reese proudly presented his creation. Ah, pasta swimming in a sea of cream. Wait, did he mention cream?
It's beautifully overcooked pasta.
Because there's loads of it. So much cream that it was hard to tell where the pasta was. But wait, there's more. In an unforgettable twist of culinary magic, Reese unleashed his masterpiece. A dish where the boundaries between pasta and sauce blurred so magnificently that it left everyone in awe.
What's amazing about this dish is you've managed to get the pasta.
Reese's magic unfolded, turning a simple pasta dish into an ethereal experience that made you wonder if you were eating pasta or floating on a fluffy cloud of creamy bliss.
kind of soft, gooey mush in your mouth, which is, I mean, hard to do.
The magic continued, with every bite making you question reality. I mean, this time, it was more than just food. It was a sensory journey. The creamy texture enveloped the pasta in such a way that it became a mystery, a delightful enigma on your plate. And let's face it, sometimes the strangest combinations turn out to be the most delicious. And well, you guessed it right. This was one of those times, a guilty pleasure we all secretly crave. But the true test of Reese's creation was yet to come.
Verdict from the line is definitely a no for MasterChef.
The moment of truth arrived as his dish faced the critical eyes of the judges. The anticipation was palpable, the stakes high. As the seconds ticked by, you could almost hear everyone's heartbeat awaiting the final judgment. And then, the verdict was delivered. It was a resounding no. The judges, in their wisdom, found Reese's concoction too daring, too avant-garde. Yet, this wasn't the end of Reese's culinary journey. What do you think? Would you be bold enough to give his dish a taste? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Speaking of, have you ever tried something so ambitious in the kitchen that it just didn't go as planned? Well, let me tell you what happened with Aaron.
I am supposed to make the dish that I would put on a future restaurant.
Aaron was preparing a dish to impress the judges and hopefully earn a spot on a future restaurant menu. Aaron decided to make something bold, a modern take on coq au vin.
You gonna do something wacky for us?
No, I'm just doing a modern version of coq au vin.
For those who don't know, coq au vin is a traditional French dish made with chicken, mushrooms, and red wine, typically served as a hearty stew. Aaron's idea was to deconstruct this rustic dish and present it elegantly on a plate with potato puree.
Presenting it as a stew, it's presented on a plate with a potato puree.
And well, Aaron explained his plan with confidence.
It's coq au vin.
Coq au vin is chicken with a mushroom, red wine.
But as the challenge kicked off, Aaron started to worry. In the first 15 minutes, he struggled to get the flavors right in the stock.
In the first 15 minutes, I knew I was going to struggle, as I just couldn't get the flavor in the...
He wanted the chicken to cook perfectly in the stock and absorb all the delicious flavors. But instead, it felt like he was just cooking the chicken in water with a subtle stock taste.
Cooking through the stock, and I'm trying to get the flavors there so it's really not water with this subtle...
Despite his struggles with the flavors, Aaron remained focused on the presentation. He wanted his dish to look stunning. He knew that presentation was crucial in the competition. As he walked around the kitchen, he glanced at his dish and felt proud. The presentation was probably the best around.
Looking at my dish and the presentation is probably the best around in the competition.
When it was time for the judges to taste his creation, Aaron was nervous. He presented his dish saying, "I've done my modern spin on coq au vin." He hoped that his creativity and beautiful presentation would win over the judges, but that's not what happened.
You know, if you read what a coq au vin is, it's a big rustic.
Turns out, although he wanted to present a coq au vin, what he ended up presenting wasn't anywhere close to it. For the uninitiated, a coq au vin is a big rustic French dish by origin. There are mushrooms, there's bacon, and basically it's a farmer's dish. In the end, what you've got is a red wine poached chicken, and it's kinda dry. After listening to the judges' lukewarm feedback, Aaron's heart sank. He realized he had missed the mark. He understood why the judges gave him such harsh feedback. He had overextended himself.
They gave me a rollicking because I overextended myself.
Cooking is about building flavors gradually, and in his ambition to modernize the dish, he had overlooked the fundamentals. In the judges' own words, they said, cooking is about building blocks. You need to build those blocks gently, and sometimes going too far forward, you end up with problems like this.
Sometimes going too far forward, you'll end up with problems like this.
But here's what went down. Aaron simply couldn't keep up with the time constraints, and his dish suffered as a result.
Couldn't keep up with the time that was going on, and for that my dish suffered quite badly.
Despite the beautiful presentation, the flavors just weren't there. It was a tough lesson for Aaron. He realized that sometimes keeping things simple and true to their roots is better than trying to reinvent the wheel. With that, now let's go back to another audition round from MasterChef, and this time we're digging into the archives. It all started with a good pace when the focus fell on the contestant who was about to present his dish.
This is probably the most stressful cooking situation I've ever been.
In the high-stakes world of cooking competitions, where every slice of a knife and every stir of a spoon can make or break a chef's dreams, there's no room for error.
Music I tried out, but I actually think that I can put up a fight with food.
Now, Robert Ford, a mere 18 years old, stepped into the arena with a mix of nerves and determination. His aspirations enough to hit the sky. Unlike his peers who might excel in equations or dazzle on the field, Robert found his rhythm, his calling in the alchemy of flavors. It was clear from the start that Robert was determined to make his mark on the competition stage. However, when he first stepped up to present his dish, Robert seemed a bit nervous rather than excited.
It's a long, painful walk, isn't it?
Through here?
From the door, yeah.
As he maneuvered through the busy kitchen, Robert's hands moved with a mixture of confidence and doubt as he worked on his creation. Suddenly, amid the chaos, disaster struck. A finger slipped under the blade, leaving a small cut on the cutting board. But what happened next was truly unexpected.
Broth sort of thing.
Have you cut your finger?
Yeah, but
Unfortunately, in the world of cooking competitions, there's no time to dwell on mistakes or to hesitate. With the encouragement of his mentors, Robert didn't let the mishap slow him down. His determination remained strong, despite the setback. However, there was something unexpected. A chunk of Robert's finger got cut off.
You taking the top off it?
no, just a chunk out of the side.
Losing a fingertip during a MasterChef audition is a serious concern. It's probably the last thing anyone would want to happen, especially in such a high-stakes moment, which happened.
Hang on. Just relax. We'll fix it.
Yes, George.
Despite the chaos, Robert's dish started to take form. A masterpiece inspired by chili mussels, but infused with his unique style happening. He combined shallots, leeks, and cherry tomatoes in a broth flavored with wine and stock. Each ingredient blended together perfectly to create a taste sensation unlike any other.
And some leek,
Yeah.
brunoise, some shallots.
Robert's creation wasn't what anyone expected. It was a bold mix of flavors that challenged the taste buds and sparked creativity. But where does it get strange? As Robert focused on finishing his dish, the unthinkable occurred.
We've got the top of the finger.
Yes, discovered something unexpected in his food. It was a moment of shock and confusion. Once they removed that unexpected item, George, another contestant, stepped in to lend a hand to Robert.
For you, because I don't want you to cut your finger off again.
George pulled off a little stunt of his own to help Robert complete his dish.
Tomatoes, sauteed them, sweated them off.
But let's get back to Robert's dish and the judges' tasting. The atmosphere was tense as everyone waited to see how Robert's bold creation would fare. His dish was a crazy concoction, and everyone held their breath, unsure if it would be a hit or a miss. As the judges dug into Robert's dish, you could feel the tension in the air. With every forkful they tasted, you could almost hear the room fill with astonished wows. It turned out that throwing caution to the wind had paid off. His dish tasted unexpectedly delicious. Robert's kitchen adventure played out like a scene from a cooking show drama. He had dared to be different, showing everyone that playing it safe was no longer in style. But imagine if they hadn't found that unexpected item in his dish. Now that would be a tasting experience that I would definitely want to miss. But this dish wasn't the only disaster served on a plate in the MasterChef kitchen. Now, let's take a step back to Season 3 for a minute here, because long before Diamond was drowning bibimbap in gravy, the contestants were facing yet another deceptively simple pressure test.
Tortellini.
And one of them was confident they could nail the dish.
My style may actually save me.
When it comes to Italian cuisine, Joe's already demanding standards go through the roof. And meeting his expectations isn't something just anyone can do.
To do this at all.
Is it clear?
Intuition and finesse were the name of the game if they wanted to make perfect tortellini. Joe knew it was a pretty hard challenge, and so he took it upon himself to show them how it was done.
That the top level of pasta sticks to the bottom.
This was honestly the first time I saw the man work his hands with such grace.
Pull each side around. This is where we're having small fingers. Pinch it in the back, and then pull the top piece down and around.
For someone who wasn't even a trained chef, that was really impressive. But none of the contestants were either, so there was an even playing field at least. Now, Anna, despite being so confident like 10 seconds ago, ran into trouble even as soon as she started kneading the dough.
You've already screwed that up from the beginning.
But it was only going to get worse from there, and in spite of the fact she got a masterclass on the subject moments earlier, there was something grossly wrong with her technique.
Get a knife in there. Just pierced it.
Anna was butchering her tortellini, literally. She was poking holes into the dough left, right, and center, dooming the filling to ooze out the moment it hit the water. But for some strange reason, Anna assumed she had everything under control. With 3 minutes remaining on the clock, as if things couldn't have gotten any worse, Anna realized something that very well could seal her fate.
Flame is off.
With a scant 2 minutes left, Anna started to panic.
Boiling, you're out of the game.
Joe didn't even have to say a word when he got his hands on the slop Anna dared to bring up. She could tell that her pasta was raw just watching him chew into it. As for Joe's reaction, he simply walked away.
As he's chewing, that my pasta isn't al dente, that it is raw.
When I saw this go down live, I absolutely expected some next level trash can action. But not today, I guess. Anyway, Anna expected that at least Graham would share some feedback, given how kind he is by default compared to Joe and Ramsay, but once again, nothing. The tension was at its peak as Ramsay made his way over, and he finally said what the others didn't even bother to.
That's his rule.
Anna knew that her chances of surviving the night were slim to none, very much leaning towards none. Anna paid the price for using a food processor to make the dough, poking holes into the tortellini, and not even cooking it through. Although Tanya came very close to getting eliminated, Anna was ultimately sent packing. And I mean, thank God. If Tanya had taken the bullet for Anna and predicted the Andrea Diamond incident 4 years before it happened, I don't think I'd have ever gotten over it, to be honest with you. Anyway, moving on, here comes Laho.
Drama. I've left my pot behind.
This woman was on a mission. But not just any mission, Laho was on a quest for a pot. Yes, you heard me right, a pot. But it's not just any pot she's after, it's the pot that's going to make her dreams come true.
I will somehow find a pot.
No pot, no chance.
Laho started off optimistic. She had everything else she needed, but no pot in sight. Can you imagine? No pot, no chance. Poor Laho. She was searching high and low, asking everyone she met if they had a spare pot lying around. But luck wasn't on her side, not yet. Just when Laho started to lose hope, guess what happened? A Good Samaritan appeared. Yes, you heard me right, a Good Samaritan. This kind soul spotted Laho's plight and decided to lend a helping hand.
Catches a lucky break from a Good Samaritan.
Finally, Laho caught a lucky break. She had her hands on the one thing that was coming in the way of her dreams, and now she was unstoppable. With pot in hand, Laho's confidence soared. She now knew that she had what it takes to win. So, what was she cooking up, you ask? Brace yourselves, because she was about to unleash a culinary masterpiece.
A combination of flavors, Austrian bush spices such as lemon.
She was mixing Austrian bush berries with lemon, adding a dash of Oriental-style mushroom fungus, and who knows what else. It was a flavor explosion waiting to happen. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Laho wasn't just cooking. She was creating magic in the kitchen. The flavors danced together in perfect harmony. It was like a symphony on your taste buds. Sweet, tangy, earthy, and exotic all at once. Can you imagine tasting something so unique?
Fungus and enoki. It's going to turn out right.
As Laho stirred and simmered her dish, you could feel the excitement building. And before you know it, the judges gathered around, eager to taste Laho's creation. And when it was finally served, oh boy, the reactions said it all.
I don't think you're the next MasterChef, but I'm really glad to have seen that dish.
Thank you so much.
Well, she might not be the next MasterChef, but who cares? She had cooked up something special, something that brought joy and excitement to everyone lucky enough to taste it.
This is a search for the best.
So here's to Laho and her quest for the perfect pot. And here's to the Good Samaritan who made it all possible. But hey, there is this one dish from Season 7, Episode 8 I want to bring up, and believe me, this particular challenge wasn't an easy one.
Oh my gosh.
The judges presented the chefs with cuts of meat that are underused at best, or simply thrown away at worst.
These are some of the cheapest and most underused cuts of meat.
Anyway, as if that wasn't already enough, the fate of the contestants was in Sean's hands, who got to pick a protein for each contestant.
Master of this challenge, and these guys better be scared.
And handing tripe over to Diana was a huge part of his master plan. Now, it wasn't just the tripe, Diana wasn't comfortable with any of the proteins.
Ever cooked with tripe before?
I've never cooked tripe.
But since she had to whip up something, here's what she decided to go with.
Spicy Mexican flares, so I'm doing menudo.
Diana thought the safest bet would be to throw in a ton of spice into the soup, and who knows? Maybe the flavors would somehow work. Not exactly a stellar strategy, but hey, points for trying. But sadly, she didn't anticipate how overboard she'd gone with the heat.
Beef stock, lime, corn, poblano peppers, jalapenos. Too hot?
After 45 minutes into the cook, the contestants were done with their dishes, and Diana's Mexican tripe menudo failed to meet expectations to say the least.
Flavorful, it smells super spicy that I can just lean on my flavors at this point.
But Chef Ramsay wasn't convinced the tripe came out of the pressure cooker.
But where is it?
Yeah, not exactly a great sign. With a lot of apprehension, he decided to give it a taste, and turns out the flavor was the least of his problems.
Spongy. I can't even pull it.
The tripe was so far beyond spongy, honestly, a kitchen sponge would probably be more toothsome at the end of the day. And what did Diana have to say for herself?
Didn't want you to get a mouthful of just chew.
Apparently, that's not how you cook tripe, and Diana wasn't oblivious to this. When she realized the tripe was still raw, in a harebrained attempt to try to hide the raw meat, she ended up making it worse by cutting it up and sticking it right back into the soup. A slight that wouldn't go unpunished.
We cannot go any further with you. Please.
But what the next contestant does will truly astound you. You must see these desperate attempts of chefs rushing to correct their mistakes. But above all, he was at the very least dumb as a bag of hammers. Like, remember when the judges had him sweating with this challenge?
Perfectly cooked pastry, gooey frosting, a classic American breakfast treat.
Apparently, cinnamon rolls were his Achilles' heel. While other contestants looked relieved, Tommy, not so much. Reason being,
baking is not my forte. I don't even eat cinnamon rolls.
But despite not knowing how to bake, it didn't stop him from being salty to Katrina.
Obviously, Katrina knows more about pies, cakes, cookies, donuts, and cinnamon rolls than I do.
Well, we'll see how that plays out, because I can already tell that this wasn't gonna end well for Tommy. Tommy always strived to be the best, but this just wasn't his day, and Chef Ramsay knew it too.
For you, the last 30 minutes of this competition?
No, I'm not done.
But just like he mentioned, Tommy wasn't about to give up without a fight.
Right, what are you doing there?
A matcha green tea and pistachio cinnamon roll.
And although he was struggling to get things in order at his station, that didn't stop him from throwing fireballs at Katrina.
Who won to leave the competition?
The bitch who tried to throw me under the bus, Katrina.
But, well, Katrina was unbothered.
I'm just telling the truth. Tommy's going home because all he is talk.
While Tommy was channelizing all of his energy into putting Katrina down, Chef Ramsay reminded him of something crucial.
A lesson.
If you don't get in the oven in the next 5 minutes, he will be going home.
I know, Chef.
So here I was, hoping that Tommy would take Chef Ramsay's words seriously, but, well, look what happened.
Dara has her cinnamon rolls up. Tommy still hasn't even rolled his dough up.
With just 25 minutes left on the clock, Tommy's dough ideally should have been in the oven. And the judges were starting to worry about his progress.
Tommy is still not in the oven, and it's 21 minutes to go.
And that's when the sweat started coming.
I am absolutely petrified. I need at least 25 minutes.
All eyes were drawn towards Tommy as he continued to work the dough and lay it into the tray as the sweet aroma of the cinnamon buns from the other contestants had already started to fill the air.
They have got to go in the oven.
I'm getting them in the pan.
And Tommy wasn't unaware that he was falling behind. He knew that he was in trouble.
Box that the cinnamon rolls are supposed to go in? That's my casket.
I mean, just look at the size of those rolls. No way are they going to be cooked in time. But, well, he'd finally managed to get the buns into the oven, much to the relief of the judges. But the work was far from done. The contestants had to use the remaining 15 minutes to whip up the toppings and the glaze, and Tommy got right into it. However, there were some things to be careful about.
Something that's not going to disintegrate with heat, something that will hold its structure. I think cream cheese, mascarpone, you don't need a lot of that milk to make it a glaze.
Well, this was a chance for Tommy to make things right. But wait, did his cinnamon buns have enough time to bake? Tommy was really cutting it with the time, but he did get the box closed right before the countdown hit the last second. And now for the deciding factor of whether Tommy was gonna stay or leave, the taste test.
100% full dread from the cosmos.
So, were Tommy's cinnamon rolls as good as his barbs?
Is a green tea filling, cinnamon, allspice, pistachio nuts.
Or was this gonna be an all bark, no bite moment?
What in the is that?
Yeah, I guess the judges' expressions say it all. And to make things worse, Chef Ramsay couldn't hide his disappointment anymore.
Now, I've heard of a sick bag, but that's the first for me, a sick box. What have you done?
Yikes. Now, that's not the kind of description I'm sure he was looking for. Meanwhile, Tommy wasn't really helping the situation at all. He was just making it even worse by throwing in random analogies.
The first tuxedo is not gonna come out great.
But hold
it's
on.
always number 2 and number 3.
Chef Ramsay wasn't about to buy the nonsense.
Eating a tuxedo.
I know,
You're
Chef.
saying it's number 2 and one mouthful of that, and I'm sure.
Now, I really want to know what it was going to taste like because there's no way that it's going to taste any better than it looks.
There are bits in there that taste decent, but visually I'm shocked.
Whoa, I am actually shocked that Chef Ramsay actually enjoyed that, because looking at it, my appetite did die off. Oh well, it wasn't Tommy's brightest moment, but either way, he was gonna remember this for life. Anyway, let's move on to Season 3, Episode 5, when after losing the challenge of cooking for a whole platoon of Marines, the blue team was set to face the first pressure test, where at least one person would be sent home. Everyone participated in the pressure test, but one person would be saved by Frank, the team captain. Frank initially selected Felix because she expressed a preference for BBQ chicken and beans, but when it came time to make a decision, she insisted on participating.
You upset?
Yes.
Yeah. Not as upset as the customers were yesterday.
Frank then opted for Scott, who also declined, followed by Stacy, who finally reluctantly agreed.
But just 5 of you are gonna have to face this pressure test.
I mean, this was a free ride. So, what's the hesitation, people? Anyway, the dish for tonight's pressure test was apple pie. At their stations, they found the essential ingredients to make it, along with additional ingredients to make their pie stand out. So, here's the deal. The contestants would be judged based on the filling, crust, and overall baking technique.
Dara is saving her friends instead of the people who really worked hard. And where I'm from, you don't do that.
Now, mind you, they had to wrap all this in a time limit of 1 hour and 15 minutes to bake. Now, the focus for today is on...
You deserve to be down here. If anything, I think Derek should take it.
I respect your honesty.
Michael, yes. the contestant who decided to come up with a rather interesting dish.
In front of you, you all have everything that you need to make 12 delicious cinnamon rolls.
Yes, you heard it right. He decided to add a layer of cheddar cheese on top of his pie. Like, why? Seriously? When time ran out, it was time to taste the pies, and you won't believe what happened. So, it was Michael's turn to present the dish, and Joe asked the most important question of the night.
Hopefully I didn't go too far off the edge and they like it.
See? Same question. He then remarked that it was watery, but what's with that bottom crust?
And espresso icing.
So that's sort of dreary looking, not most attractive.
But wait, it's not just the crust that was obliterated. Chef Ramsay had bigger problems with the dish.
Smells delicious.
And why is that?
We're on the blue team. Captain Dara is still gathering ideas.
Yeah, here we are every damn day finding new and exciting things to cringe at. Anyway, Chef Ramsay continued tearing into that dish left, right, and center.
I lived on it in India for months, 10 cups a day.
But wait, that's not all?
And to take the hit, you also got the potential of becoming a unique baker.
I think the disappointment in his voice said it all. Michael, you not only ruined the dish, but also Chef Ramsay's day. If that wasn't embarrassing enough, you won't believe what Charlie Chapman from Season 6 baked for the judges for his elimination test. So here's what the test was all about.
In case you're wondering why there are 2 candles.
Whoa, that's a bit dramatic blowing out the candles like that. And I could see the complete and utter pain in the contestants' eyes.
Flavor combinations you like, as long as your cake is a minimum of 3 layers.
Damn, that cake right there got me hungry for sure. Now, the contestants had to make a cake with any flavor, but it must have 3 layers in all. I mean, with the basic vanilla flavor and a little side of fun to it. It could either be a hit or, well, not.
A birthday cake with sprinkles. I'm gonna make it real fun. I'm gonna dress it up.
But soon enough, he started to struggle.
Making more batter. He doesn't have enough batter in his pans. He's not gonna have a done cake.
Whoa, and Charlie was back to square one with not enough batter left, and there he was, whipping up another batch from scratch. The question in everyone's mind at this point, would his cakes be set in time? Or would they all sink into one big mush?
Out of the oven, cooling!
Yeah, Charlie was walking on thin ice. There's no way he could pull off a 3-tier cake, complete with all those beautiful layers of frosting. Well, it looks like someone was in deep trouble.
Cutting it close.
Charlie.
You have to make a minimum 3-layer cake. How are you gonna get that done?
With one batch of cake inside the oven, Charlie decided to cut the size of his already baked cakes and make 3 layers out of it. Think it's a smart move? Well, I'll let you be the judge.
Gotta look pretty.
Chef,
Celebratory for us,
you
okay?
gonna love this
The
cake.
big 100.
Not
Charlie was suffering because he totally messed up the measurements. But hey, that doesn't mean he was ready to give up.
You have an opportunity to make your cake shine.
Now, I don't know if you got a glimpse of Charlie's cake, but I know one thing for sure, it wasn't the prettiest looking one. And to make things worse, wait till you see how he worked on it.
The human spatula.
Oh my god, Charlie, I can't even, I don't want to look at this.
Wait, was he really using his hands to coat the frosting on the cake? I mean, what the actual hell, this guy was beyond parody.
Oh my god.
10, 9, 8.
I mean, Charlie was a mess. His cake, his frosting, his station, everything was a mess. Well, I'm not surprised he was the last contestant to be judged. Anyway, I'll be going over every single minute of what went down here because this cake was unlike any other you've ever seen on the show. Not surprising why Chef Ramsay was upset.
It looks like you've been frosting a lump of concrete.
But it tastes good.
Well, I hope it does. Because that would be his only saving grace. I mean, just look at this thing. Didn't Chef Ramsay say it looked like a lump of concrete? Well, I think he was being kind, because here's what it really looked like.
I mean, are you serious?
So much so that Chef Ramsay immediately burst into laughter.
Still delicious. But you have to have the ugliest cake tonight.
Out of surprise or relief? I don't know, you tell me. I mean, this dude turned the whole thing around and made Chef Ramsay completely fall in love with the cake. But there was one thing Chef Ramsay wanted to make certain.
Not just in the MasterChef kitchen, I'm talking America.
So, what do you think? Would the flavors be enough to get him through the elimination?
Your time is done in the MasterChef kitchen.
Yeah, there's no way he could walk away from a disaster like that.
Straight from New Orleans, an attic rat, fixing on air conditions. And I'm leaving here.
But here comes a contestant who was an even bigger mess. He had a terrible temper, always got into arguments, and had no problem spewing excuses for his constant blunders.
Where you are standard-wise. I don't, actually, and we're gonna get 2 more orders. So don't dare!
See, in the beginning, Jeff started off strong, all determined to nail each challenge that would be thrown his way. But out of nowhere, he took a massive nosedive.
And we serve him that. For the 4th time!
But out of nowhere, he took a massive nosedive. When things didn't go his way, Jeff was known to flip out and have these violent outbursts that could throw anyone off guard.
That's not my best, I never said it. Do you hear what I said? I look a bigger dick than you.
And don't even get me started on how he acted when he was under pressure. Total meltdown.
Hurt. We can debate about the dick bit later.
And if you think he was a team player, you'd be sorely mistaken. He was the sorest loser you could ever imagine. So with that background, let me walk you over to what happened in the Mystery Box Challenge. With a family reunion theme, Jeff had to create a savory dish inspired by his loved ones.
Holy Santa Claus. What?
Jeff.
When he saw his fiancée and son, he had this grand plan of making a soy-glazed salmon with all these fancy accompaniments like miso, ginger, garlic cauliflower puree, and pickled radishes with Asian pears.
33 minutes, everyone.
But unfortunately, his dish didn't impress the judges enough to be considered a top entry. Then, the remaining contestants had to cook another salmon dish, but here's the kicker. Kate, who had won the previous mystery box, got to assign different time limits to everyone else.
At 50 minutes, you'll shout out another name. Same at 40 minutes.
Now, Jeff got the shortest time limit of just 20 minutes, and he hurriedly rushed to the pantry to get things going.
I'm in fire.
Certainly, I am one of the top chefs here.
Little did he know, Kate actually wanted Jeff gone because of his poor attitude.
Jeff.
His attitude is poor, so I want to send him home.
But Jeff, bless his delusional heart, believed that he was given the shortest time limit because he was seen as the strongest cook. Talk about a major misunderstanding. Well, finally it was time for judgment. Jeff served a Mediterranean-style salmon with feta cheese and sun-dried tomato relish over an apple and cucumber gratin with cranberry and stout beer.
There, with a little bit of feta cheese and sun-dried tomato relish that's over a nice apple.
Now, Jeff was confident that he believed his dish was the best.
The best I could with the time that I was given. And at the end of the day, I don't think anyone else could have done better.
However, Ramsay wasn't impressed when he found out that the salmon was raw.
It's raw. Are you trying to poison me?
Ramsay was mad. He accused Jeff of trying to poison him. But Jeff tried to defend himself by saying that he intentionally wanted the salmon to be rare. Ramsay, however, berated him for not understanding the difference between rare and raw.
On the rarer side.
Come on, young man.
Are you saying you wanted it that rare?
Yes.
What's more, Ramsay found the combination of the salmon and the gratin to be super weird, and even compared the salmon to sushi.
Weird. It's like sushi there. The fibers haven't even gone. Look.
Anyway, when the judges headed out to finalize their decision, Dino made a joke about making sushi, which didn't sit well with Jeff.
Were we allowed to make sushi?
And man, you have to listen to his retort yourselves.
We'll make a spaghetti and meatball. We'll make a what?
Things escalated quickly and turned into a full-on brawl. Either way, the moment of truth had finally arrived, and Jeff found himself standing alongside Yachicia as one of the 2 home cooks up for elimination. Now, Ramsay didn't hold back in his criticism of Jeff.
He didn't care. The person...
And just when it seemed like Yachicia would be going home, Ramsay shocked everyone by eliminating both Yachicia and Jeff.
Yachicia. And Jeff.
Aside from the raw salmon, Ramsay claimed Jeff's defensive and unteachable attitude ultimately sealed his fate in the competition. When Jeff was asked about his feelings after the elimination, he surprisingly had some good things to share.
Along the way, I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the 3 of you, so thank you.
By the way, he also admitted that he may have rubbed some of the cooks the wrong way with his attitude, but he maintained that he did the best he could.
Supported my team, and I did the best that I could.
All in all, Jeff was a train wreck of a competitor, with his fiery temper, childish behavior, and inability to see his own flaws. It's no wonder he went down in flames. Just like this next contestant right here. So, Diana found herself in a situation that would define her journey on the show. A foolish mistake that left a sour taste in the mouths of everybody involved.
So I have got some raw tripe here.
Diana faced a tall order, making a soup that would impress the judges.
Too hot?
That fry needs to be hotter, so it gets crispier.
However, in her eagerness to succeed, she made one fateful decision that would ultimately lead to her downfall.
But I think she understands how bland that tripe is.
Knowing that her tripe wasn't cooked properly, she was left with one choice, to do the unthinkable.
But where is it?
Like I said, Chef, I minced it in there, so there's...
Instead of admitting her mistake and starting over, she chose to hide the raw meat in the soup, hoping to deceive the judges. But, I mean, talk about a complete impossibility.
And I used jalapenos, and I used the tripe.
So how did you cook the tripe?
I put the tripe in a pressure cooker.
Because as soon as Chef Ramsay got a spoonful of the stuff, he knew he was being played. As they continued to sample the soup for some reason, even despite the safety hazard it posed, the judges couldn't ignore the obvious. Each spoonful was a reminder of Diana's ill-advised decision to hide her mistake rather than rectify it.
Trying to hide the fact that it was raw.
But you've done the cardinal sin, you've done the worst thing.
Nothing angers Chef Ramsay more than being served raw food. It is a fundamental rule of the kitchen: food must be cooked properly to ensure both safety and flavor. Diana's attempt to deceive the judges by hiding raw meat in the soup was a blasphemous error that couldn't be overlooked.
Back and smothered it. Damn.
What perhaps added insult to injury was Diana's admission of her deception. Instead of trying to defend her actions, she openly admitted to trying to mask the fact that the meat was raw. It was a moment of folly, a lapse in judgment that killed her career in the competition. The judges, with expressions of disappointment and disbelief, knew that this dish sealed her fate. What's more, after listening to Chef Ramsay's verdict, the other two judges didn't even bother tasting it. Diana's attempt to hide raw food in the soup had turned what should have been a simple challenge into a revolting experience. It was a dish that left a lasting impression, but for all the wrong reasons. As the judges delivered their verdict, it was clear that there was no room for forgiveness. Diana's dish, once filled with promise, had become a warning for all the remaining chefs in the competition.
I never got to show the judges really what I have.
It was a harsh lesson learned. So, who do you think made the dumbest mistake? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to visit my social media pages, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications if you haven't already. And if you thought this video was crazy, wait till you see my next video right here.